All right, folks. Good afternoon. Whether you're joining us live right now or whether you're coming in later, welcome to the Nerd Council of Doom. I am Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver. I think we can get some. Some display names up here. There we go.
Hey.
Yan Zhao and the one and only the Dungeon Minister joining us today. But welcome everybody. It's good to see you all here. And this is the first and last Nerd Council of Doom of 2023. So this is something that we've been wanting to do. But hey, three RPG nerds trying to coordinate a schedule is name a more iconic power trio, right?
Well, and every time we've tried in the past, my computer connection or sound has somehow fritzed out. So the fact that you can actually hear me at this point and hear me clearly is a miracle of technology.
Well, you are 5x5. You have Radar O'Reilly to that thing together today, and we've got you, Joel Stein. Welcome. Thank you
Joel.
for the howdy there. But anyway, gentlemen, tell me about your 2023s from the nerd perspective. Now, I'm gonna give the talking stick straight away to the celebrity of the moment, who is actually the Dungeon Minister, because you, sir,
me, sir,
you took it to the mattresses. Tell us about Claricon, man.
Claricon, that was sort of in nerd terms, that was a big event for me this year. It started out, I think it started out at the first Guac, when you ran the first Guac and you began joking about when you hit 10,000 subs, which is seemingly less like a joke every day for you, as you start scraping up into serious YouTube channel territory. And I thought, well, I have a space available, right? Like, I mean, it would be much cheaper for me to rent the church hall than it would be to rent a hotel hotel ballroom or conference center or something like that. I've got the space, and for a small con, and it would happen in the village that is the inspiration for my campaign setting, which would be kind of cool, a neat link in. I thought, yeah, we could do that. And I actually was at our annual clergy convention and just tossing the idea around, like, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that. And of course, the people in the chat are always going to say, yeah, do it, because they're not organizing it. Yeah. So yeah, do it. And the name Claricon was suggested. I can't remember if it was me or someone in the chat and voted on. And then we said, yeah, we'll do it. So I scheduled it for early November to give myself time, and we held it, and it was a lot of fun. We had a good mix of people who came because of the channel. So people drove up from Indiana, Kentucky.
Nice.
Wow.
New York City. Bandits Keep came in from New York, and Hexed Press came with him. And so we had some people from far afield because of the channel. And of course, Mage's Musings and Tale of the Manticore, other YouTubers came in from closer in. And then there was a number of people who came. They had never heard of the channel before, but they heard that there was an old school convention happening, and they showed up. So we ended up with 47 registrants, which was pretty cool. Slightly higher than that in attendance because there were some people who just drifted in, and I was just like, it's late on the second day of the convention. I'm not taking money for you. Come in, and we had a couple of other folks. BS Games was there. They're a game maker here in the area, and they've just made something I think is Sonoda, I think is the name of it. And I think it's going to be, it actually is a really cool game. So I think it's going to be a good one when they get it to production. They were sort of still road testing it. And and we got our local game shop to come and be a vendor there. And it was fun. I don't know if you can hear my boys playing games in the other room now.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, it's good.
Anyway, so yeah, that's
what happened. And happiness. How could we not like that?
Yeah.
I mean, I heard a rumor. Now, maybe you can correct me on this, but I heard a rumor you had a fairly easy and just trouble-free Dungeons and Dragons trivia contest one night.
Yeah, you're one to talk. Yeah, so we opened with a dinner, right? So I wanted to open with a dinner, and it was a dinner made by the people in the parish. So it was sort of home cooked because it wasn't in their homes. So it was down at the parish. It was really nice dinner, and I wanted to give it some sort of. I mean, I made joke names for the dishes, like so instead of pork, it was orc, um, things like that. But silly. But then I wanted to have some RPG content as part of it, and Lawrence from Dirty Basement Terrain had sent up some things for me to use to auction off, to use as prizes, etc., gifts and whatnot. And one of them was the Call of Cthulhu cookbook, the
Ooh.
Necronom Nom 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 Nomicon. And so that was the prize, and I put together a trivia, a little trivia sheet, to fill in the blank, or no, it was multiple choice and fill in the blank, and I provided the Beck Me questions, and it's sort of BX Beck Me questions, and Fleetwood, my eldest son, provided some Hollow World content, and you, sir, Dungeon Delver, provided some AD&D content, and I have to say. I don't know which one got. I wish I'd saved them. I could go back and see who got less right on whose questions, because the top score, Mage's Musings, won with a top score of 14 out of 30. It was a hard partly because a number of the questions. Well, first of all, I made sure they were obscured. I took a number of mine from like the companion book, which hardly anyone ever plays Beck Me long enough to get to the companion book. And you had a lot of them that were specific to the Greyhawk setting. And so if you had played, Blackmoor, if you played Forgotten Realms, you've got no idea. Yeah, so it was tough. It was tough, but it was fun. It was fun.
What can I say? My fastball's got a little drop on it, and I think I actually have a picture here from when you guys were getting the dinner ready. Let me bring that up there.
There you go. There it is. That's where we went shopping. Classic.
But yeah, no, now what'd you have? 30, 40 people there?
Well, it was 47 registered, and I would say slightly over that came because of people like the fellow. It's Bob or Bill from BS Games. It's B and Bob and Scott. Bill and Scott, Bob and Scott, and Bill and Scott.
Okay.
The B for BS Games was there, and he wasn't there as a registrant. He was there as a vendor, and the folks from Hooded Goblin were there as vendors, not as registrants. And then I said there were some people who wandered in late. It was so late in the day, I'm not charging them money to be there. So
Sure.
we probably had over 50 all told, who at some point or another were part of it.
That's nice, man. That is really awesome. Well, congratulations. And I'm going to make a prediction here. I'm going to say you will have your 10th. You will probably have your 10th Claricon before I have my first IRL block. So that is my prediction here on the show today.
Well, one of the things we're here to talk about today is news from 2023, and if the news from 2024 is anything like the news from 2023, your channel's just going to keep going up, because it was a gift to you this year. I tell you, you were Johnny on the spot.
Yeah.
I don't want to make this a me thing immediately, but yeah, I do. We'll see. We'll circle back around to that in the conversation. But Yang, speaking of tabletop, you've got quite the number of irons in the fire with your campaign. Something that you want to talk about? Do you want to spill the beans on it yet, or you want to keep that a little bit secret, or what is the cover blurb you can talk about?
Empire of the Undying Sun will be released at some point in 2024. So Empire of the Undying Sun. Okay. No, don't throw any rotten fruit, but it is for D&D 5e.
Mm-hmm.
However, in the future, I do plan on making conversions to 1e and 3.5. But it is overall a horror campaign, and part of it is my attempt to correct some things that went wrong in 5e. So part of the problem with the current version of Dungeons and Dragons is that you really lost a lot of the feel that you had in old school. There's multiple death saving throws, so hardly anybody dies once you get past a certain level. It's sort of very user friendly. No, not user friendly, but it's very family friendly. And I aim to change all that. I do that in one way by giving the DM options. So, for example, in the very first mission your players will be on, they will either be there to steal a crystal or to protect the crystal from being stolen. And this crystal belongs to the religion of the Black Ram. And well, regardless of whichever you are, if you're on that mission and you don't worship the ram, he curses you and you don't have death saving throws. And we go from there. Try to make it a lot more in the vein of original D&D. Try to build up your initial town, South Bay, and I attempt to have a fun storyline to follow while giving players a lot of agency by certain things will happen on certain dates in the campaign. So we have like a strict calendaring system. So if you don't like the story as it is, that's fine. You could do your own thing, but stuff will still happen. And it's going to be great. You have rotating pyramids where you have to find your way through, and your players will interact with gods and spirits, and they will go to the dream realm where perhaps they'll be haunted by things, or they could become somebody else's Freddy Krueger. It is going to be a fun campaign. And if you back the campaign, you will get a year's subscription to the website. And on the website, every month, there is going to be a new, what I call a one-shot, something that's made to be, 4 to 6 hours of playtime set in the world that you can use it if you want, or if you say, your story sucks, just take it and use it in your own campaigns. And those are going to be a lot of fun. Some will be written by me, and I have 3 adventures coming from Bill Selvey himself, the Dungeon Delver.
That's right. So yeah, I'm not going to tip my hand on what I've written. But when Yang showed me the stuff, when he talked about the world, it was really a lot of fun to kind of adjust my expectations. And one of the things I got to tell you, one of the great things about working in that I found down here in our and Yang Dungeon Minister, anybody's creative spaces, we know what time it is. Okay. You meaning Wizards of the Coast, might make us publish OGL. Guys, these are the books we're writing with. All right. I didn't dive for 5e materials. I cracked open the Monster Manual, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Player's Handbook. Back converting it is not an issue. So it's like when people come to me and they say, oh, well, yeah, if you want to make any money in the TTRPG space for fantasy, you got to do D&D by 5e rules. Look, what you do with it when it gets on your table is your own business. I'm telling you, it leaves the shop as first edition or original D&D, which is what I did this year. I worked with Heidi Gygax and Eric Garland over at Gaxland with their project, and basically they were like, we want you to write to go through our module and rewrite it for first edition AD&D or rewrite it for original D&D, and that's what I did. Yeah, we've got you sussed, Wizards of the Coast. We're still publishing OD&D and AD&D and Basic Expert.
You bet your boots, mister.
That's right, and basic expert. But yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun working on your stuff, Yang. So let me bring that back around. Dungeon Minister, I know you have nothing but free time on your hands.
Especially this time of year.
Especially this time of year, and
things
but
really loosen up near the end of December.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got a spring. What goes on in spring for you? Nothing. Just
No.
But are we someday going to see some Honeywood campaign materials? I ask that because I think there is a serious empty space between original D&D and first edition AD&D in the real old school space.
Right. Well, you know what? Yeah, I've always found a lot of people have a sort of deep devotion to Mystara, and maybe it's the name. It sounds too much like, I don't know. It sounds too much like a dancing girl, sort of like at the local gentleman's club. I don't know.
That you definitely don't know about.
You got to know all about it if you're gonna, not a research trip or anything, but the things you
confessions.
hear in the confessional, the things you hear in the confessional. But I never really cottoned to it. It just never really spoke to me. And so I've actually never gamed in a system that I run. I've never gamed in an established off-the-shelf kind of campaign setting. I've always made my own up. So part of me says no, because I think people should just make their own. I think you should just do whatever. And then even if you take one off the shelf, inevitably you start messing around with it, right? I don't like this about the system, the setting. I'm just going to swap that around. And but the flip side of that is I've actually already just recently wrote an adventure. What is the adventure that I opened Claricon with, that I put up on my patron page for patrons. So that's sort of already established some of it, and of course what's on the channel. And the boys and I are working on a book of mighty monsters, fiendish foes, and dangerous dragons. And it's all they essentially they color a picture of some creature out of their imagination, and then I stat it up and write a little blurb about it. So that's in the works. And yeah, I mean, I look at it and I think, coming up with it and doing it at the table that's jazz, right? That's just, pop, 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 pop. It's easy. Writing it all down seems extraordinarily tedious, more like Baroque or something. So I don't know. I don't know if I will ever have the focus and the discipline to actually put it down on paper in a digestible manner, or I'll just vomit onto the page and say, here you go. I don't know. I'd like to. I mean, it would be fun because there are some parts of it that I think are a lot of fun and hooked together nicely. But I don't know. And when it comes down to it, it's a pretty vanilla fantasy world, right? It's not like there's no floating continents overhead. There's no, gushers of lava that randomly pop out of the ground and any of the sort of stuff that makes a world like, so it's all pretty bland, but it works for us, so I'm fine with it. I don't know if I'll ever make it available wider.
Well, again, I think there's a need for it. I mean, and as far as Mystara goes, I mean, honestly, it's my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, to either one of you guys, but it's my understanding that Mystara really wasn't, that it just kind of slowly congealed as the B modules were released. Unlike World of Greyhawk, which was Gary's established campaign going all the way back to late chainmail games in '73 until Dungeons and Dragons, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and so on. And he had a vision for that. Mystara just kind of seemed to pop up like mushrooms after a rainstorm.
Yeah, well, it always felt to me like the the neutral default fantasy setting. Like there wasn't anything. It's sort of like my own. There wasn't anything outstandingly different or unique about it. It just kind of was. The one feature I think that it had that differentiated it was the existence of Bargle. I think that's the one thing that Mystara's got, that this Bargle's intervention. And so I stole him.
As you should.
Yeah.
As you should. Every dungeon master should steal stuff from other settings to put in their own settings. That's the best way to do it. I mean, and that's what I love about Greyhawk is it's so broad, it's so open. If I want to take if I want to take the keep on the Borderlands and put it in Greyhawk, as I often do,
Yeah.
I can. Unlike other campaign settings, I'm not going to squash any established lore. I don't have to worry about, oh, well, but there's superpowered NPC that exists in this world. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I can just plunk it down there.
I really like campaign settings that are detailed where they're detailed, and then on the edges it says there be monsters, unknown lands.
Mhm.
There's lots of room in them, to fill up the cracks and the corners and the crevices, the unfilled spaces. Do whatever,
Right. And that was one of the things. No, I'm sorry. No, it's just that was one of the things that turned me on to D&D in the first place. Was Gary's description of how approaching the keep, you are getting out on the dark fringes.
Right.
Like there was almost a Joseph Conradian Hearts of Darkness sense of you, like you said, here be dragons.
Yeah, all of the best fantasy does that, right? I mean, even The Hobbit, which is this sort of tame little story comparatively. The journey, they're out of the Shire for like a day and a half, and they're already into troll country, and there's danger there, and Game of Thrones as the Wall, and beyond is this unknown icy netherworld, right? There's always a thing. There's just danger just beyond.
Yeah.
It gives the tension, it gives the source of evil, it gives the primary malignancy. I mean, Mordor is this shrouded place beyond the mountains, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just good drama, really.
Oh yeah, unquestionably. And that brings up an interesting topic, and we've got a lot to cover in the next little while. And I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here, but let me just throw an idea out there. And audience, I want you guys to chime in on this too. I want your opinions. And I have felt this back from the first time I cracked the books. And even I would say into going back as far as into The Hobbit. Two ideas. First of all, The Lord of the Rings is a post-apocalypse setting. And two, all good fantasy settings are post-apocalypse settings.
Right.
You are in The Hobbit. The most recent apocalypse is the Desolation of Smoke. Right. I mean, let's completely flip it around. 13 mercenaries and a U.S. Army officer show up at a relatively peaceful village in the middle of post-World War III Poland and approach a young medic. We need a medic to go to this city that was nuked by the Soviets with us to recover armored vehicles that were stored in a bunker. Right. I mean, that's The Hobbit. And then when you get into The Lord of the Rings, when they're journeying south through the land of Holland, when they're turned back from Cahardras, Aragorn, I believe it's either Aragorn or Legolas comments, yes, this was once a green land filled with people and villages and farms, and plague wiped them out. Now it's a desolate place.
I wonder how much of that has to do with the fact that so much of fantasy comes out of the Western kind of mindset, at least the kind of fantasy we're talking about, and Europe lived for the longest time with the remains of the Roman Empire, and they could see that there was a preceding society which had been stronger and more capable than they were at that time, right? And they could see the results of the fall of that. And so that bakes itself into the mindset that there was always a glory time before when we were more powerful. And it's even, I mean, in the biblical story, right? Eden is perfection and we've fallen from it.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, the entire world's always in this post-apocalyptic state. So I wonder if that's part of that, that we're still chewing on that, the remnants of that cataclysmic historic effect. We're still working it out.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Men think about the Roman Empire, at least once a day. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really even goes further back than that, because like you were talking about the Garden of Eden, even non Judeo-Christian religions always seem to have like a golden age that came before. Some of the earliest myths that we can go back to, probably 50,000 years, 60,000 years, there was always a state where man was immortal and somehow he lost his immortality. There's all sorts of things like that, which, could be down to our DNA at the moment. So if you can sort of tickle that sweet spot in your campaign, I think people will really resonate with it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's something that, and I think maybe it's intrinsic to our behavior to look, what is the great Shelley poem Ozymandias? Look on my works, ye mighty, in despair. And of course, that was written as a caution to Britons. Everything can fall. So hold on tight to what you've got. As you walk through the wasteland trying to either reestablish or rebuild things, you must hold on tight to what you've got, because look around you.
Yeah.
Look what can happen to even the most glorious of kingdoms. When you rebuild those things and you rebuild the watchtowers at Em and Hen, and you recreate the army and so on, there's still a shadow that can take it all away. And I think it is a duality. I think it is a combination of the adventurous idea of exploring the ruins of an ancient society, but then perceiving it and saying, we can't let this happen to us as we rise up again.
Well, and yeah, it has that moral imperative. It has dramatic purpose, and it has the simply mechanical advantage of saying, well, that's where all the magic stuff comes from. They could do it,
Yeah.
Do you remember the cartoon? Oh, the Visionaries. It was a line of action figures with holograms on their chests.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I know the toys, but I didn't. The cartoon was a little after my time.
Right. Yeah. It was a little after my time too, but it was the kind of thing you go home and you watch anyway. You don't tell your friends you're watching it. But, yeah, and it's set in the sort of technology has failed and now there's magic. Like the technology going away allowed the magic to come back, kind of thing. It was always a fun one.
Yeah. I mean, it goes through so much media. I mean, hey, Robotech or Macross fans out there, that's a post-apocalypse story. When the super-dimensional fortress lands on Earth, it is fleeing from the vestiges of an incredibly destructive war. When the Zentradi show up to get it back, they want it back because they need the tech to try and understand and rebuild things. When it lands on Earth, what does Zentradi do to the Earth? Leaves it a post-apocalypse disaster. The Empire is in the midst of crumbling. The Republic has fallen when Star Wars kicks off. And I mean, the quintessential PA story, Mad Max. I love the introductions to the Mad Max films. You can feel in the first Mad Max movie, things are about to go from really bad to awful. And when the Road Warrior kicks off, what you feared was going to happen in the background in Mad Max did.
Yeah.
and it doesn't get any better. I mean, the world situation doesn't get any better as the movies go on. I didn't know what to expect going into Mad Max Fury Road, but dear God, they managed to make things worse. Things managed to be worse. So no, I think it's an intrinsic, inherent part of our adventuring mindset to go out into the ruins and try and rebuild and protect what we have against that happening again. So that's probably why that's so popular. But
getting a very, very Jordan Peterson. You gotta go into the belly of the whale and rescue your dead father. Bring your dead father back. You face the dragon.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole, because then we're going to start talking about washing our junk, and I just don't, I just can't with that, man. I just can't with that. But anyway, so on to happier things. What's geek gifts, guys? Nerd gifts, 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 not gifts, GIFS. And it is GIF. It is GIF. It's not GIF. It's GIF. I mean, do you go to church and worship Jod? No. It's GIF.
Well, and it's because it's just a graphic interface. So unless you say graphic. So
don't start with me.
That's it. It's GIF. It has to be GIF because it
has to be GIF. Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, so what's good in geek gifts?
Well, Dungeon Delver, can you share my window? I've got that shared there.
I am. Let's see. And
there we go.
All right.
So my first recommendation, I've got several comic book recommendations. So do you have a lot of relatives and they've all got kids and you don't really want to spend a lot of money? Well, here you go. Alterna Comics. Alterna Comics still prints on newsprint, just like when we were kids. And their issues in general average between $1.50 and $2 US per issue. So you can go ahead and you can buy tons. They've got a lot of back issues. They've got all ages fare. Right now, some of their bigger titles are King Cryptid, which is about a sort of a Bigfoot-like creature who lives in New Hampshire, and he helps other cryptids or encounters them anyways, and trying to stay free from the Necros, the evil government organization who wants to capture them all. There's H.H. Hoover, who is an occult detective in New York City, and he wears a vacuum on his head. He has all sorts of adventures going through the world. Blood Realm is for a little older. It's great if you're into myths and fantasies. It's a bunch of maybe like 3-4 issues on one legend from a time in this fantasy world. It's fantastic. One caveat, I spoke with the owner, and unfortunately, if you order now, you won't have them under the tree for Christmas, but you could pull a 1977 and just put a picture of the comics that they will be getting in a box.
Pull a 1977, nice.
So we also have Battle Brick Road by Eric Weathers. It's an updated telling of Wizard of Oz. It is sort of a future setting where Toto is like an AI sphere that follows Dorothy around. Dorothy has had military training, and she's looking for her father, who is trapped somewhere in the land of Oz. Issue 1 is out. Issue 2 should be out soon. We have Rise Again Comics, who has the great issues of Monster MD, which you can see right there. Also Terror in the Trenches. These are a little bit more adult, but they're still perfectly good for kids who are, let's say, 12 and up. Adults would like it as well. Fantastic art, fantastic looking books. And then the last one is some books from Iconic Comics. So they're publishing a few titles. Their most popular is the Common America series, which in some ways is a takeoff of somewhere between Sailor Moon and the Masked Rider series out of Japan. It is a bunch of young women who have superpowers, and they are protecting the world from the forces of evil. Black Hops, which is during World War II at the bombing of Hiroshima. One rabbit absorbed the radiation and gained superpowers, and he and some of his other animal friends are now helping the U.S. military to stop terrorist organizations around the world.
Okay.
A good one is Soul Finder. Now, this might be up the Dungeon Minister's
I was
up
noticing
his
the
alley.
collar there.
So he is a priest, and the Soul Finders are priests that are devoted to fighting demons, but not just in the exorcism sense. They have to have been warriors before they became priests, and they go through the world to find people who are possessed by these specific demons and foil these plots. Issues 1 through 3 are out already, and the last one, which I think would be a big interest to any geek, is Long Harbor. So Long Harbor is really a spiritual successor to H.P. Lovecraft's In the Mountains of Madness. It's about a man who has to take his daughter on this crew. They're on an icebreaker going to Antarctica, and all sorts of creepy things start to happen once they get there. So I can easily recommend all of these titles for people who are into comics. If you got friends, family, or you just want to give yourself a Christmas gift, these are all fantastic.
Cool.
That sounds amazing. Those all sound great. Anything else on the list? I see some more tabs in your browser, so I don't want to.
Well, I do. So another one is massage guns. Nerds tend to have terrible posture and get horrible muscle aches. So why not help that nerd in your life? Especially, you got a DM. He's hunched over that screen. He's rolling dice. Help him out a little.
Yeah. Back massager. I got you. Go
on. So for anyone who is interested, Epidemic Sound. Now, this is a little bit interesting of a choice. It's great if you have a YouTube channel and you want to have music on there and you don't want to get copyright struck. This is royalty-free music. They've got a ton of genres, lots of great music. Even if you're not into, you're not doing a YouTube thing, they have a lot of really great artists on there and fantastic music to listen to. So I've got that and MacWeedle. So this is by a guy, the Basic Expert. I believe the Dungeon Minister has been on his channel. This is for White Box or AD&D first edition, and it's basically a campaign setting in the ancient Aztec world. One thing that really got me excited about it was that it really took into account a lot of the average everyday life, like how people interacted with their gods, how people interacted with other groups of Native Americans living in the area. And it just seems like a fun step out of sort of if you're looking for a break, taking a little break from D&D, play this for, a month and then go back.
A very, very different setting,
Yes. Not for kids.
It takes a lot of heart to play in a setting like that.
Oh. Ouch.
I'm
sorry. 700 years down the line, a little too soon for that joke.
I can't tell you to get out. It's your live stream, it's your StreamYard. But man, this is if that Cary Grant Get Out
animated
GIF was ever going to be used, it'd be now.
Yes.
So Joel Stein asks, how about pronouncing that Indian Aztec name for us? I believe it's pronounced Macuitl, which is the name of, it's actually a weapon. It kind of looks like if you've seen a cricket bat, but on the edges, they have sharpened obsidian glass. So it's kind of like a club, but functions more like a sword.
It's also the name of my the Scottish part of my family, the McQueedle clan. Oh, what are the McQueedles?
The
We come
McQueedles.
from Mexico. We're the Mexican Scots, you know.
Yeah, a lot of red and green and white in their tartan.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's well. Those are fantastic. Someone gifted me a copy of Mahuito. I have not downloaded it yet. I literally I have been so busy since October. I haven't had a chance to sit down and crack the thing open yet. But I need to I need to have a look at it. That looks like really really cool. So I have a few too. Not as many as Yang's got going there. He's got you covered table to table to chair, which is nice. But I have a few here. And yes, many of them are just me tooting my own horn, but that's absolutely fine. So let me see this, not end stream, Bill. Let's see your screen. I just have to click the 9 convenient buttons that it takes to share something on screen at StreamYard. No, I kid, but I love StreamYard. You know what? That's the first thing. If you're just starting out, if you're in the YouTube classic D&D creator space, first of all, you are welcome here. Second of all, please let me know and we will promote the hell of your channel. 3, get StreamYard. Even if you're going to do the free one where you got to have the little duck head in the corner, get StreamYard. It makes all that. I stumbled around groping in the dark trying to figure out this whole streaming thing. So there's a little free amuse-bouche for the folks over at StreamYard. It's absolutely worth the time to set up, if nothing else, even if you're just going to do a free account. But so the first stuff I've got, yes, Joel, groping. The first stuff I've got is my friends Heidi and Eric, and we've had them on the show Gaxland. And that is Eric Garland and Heidi Gygax, and they have their adventure creating concern over yonder, and they have a lot of really cool stuff. And I don't just say that because I've had a hand in a lot of its creation. They have a series of adventure modules that are amazing. They have some gorgeous art by Chet Minton, and this thumbnail is not really doing it justice. Hopefully I can bring that up a little bit. They got some dice there, Tomb of the Dundle Chief, an autographed copy, Curse of Candlelight Manor. I'm particularly proud of this one here myself because I got to work on that a little bit. I did some OD&D work for it. And yes, it is the size and color of an OD&D book. Do recommend. Do recommend. But they have AD&D like modules. They have dice. The Clockwork Scorpion that appears in Tomb of the Dundle Chief. They have that custom miniature created by I think, now if I've got this wrong, I apologize to everyone concerned, but I believe that is the handiwork of John Popson, whom we've also interviewed on the show. Yes, that is Chet Minton's art and sculpted by John Popson over effing cool. If I listed up the cool mini companies that you guys should check out, neither one of my guests would get to talk, and we don't want that. My guests, I'm sorry, fellow council members, but so yeah, check out Gax. They do have merch too. If that is the same page. So they have shirts and such also. So if you wanna check that out, the official Gaxland apparel.
Like the bear.
Yeah, the bears are quite lovely. So definitely give them a look. That's just gaxland.com, GAXLAND.com, and you can check them out. Now, speaking of the people we've had on the show, and this might be of some interest to you, Yang, being a comics maven as you are, Shattermare Comics. And I recommend them specifically for two reasons. One, they have some limited edition comics with covers done by Tracy Lesh. That Tracy Lesh, yes, our very own Tracy Lesh. Who is one of the pioneers of Dungeons and Dragons. He was there in 75. I mean, you don't get much more pioneer than that unless your last name is Gygax or Arneson, right? Or Ward or Kuntz, but you get what I'm saying. But anyway, Shattermare has an issue called Hardly Heroes, and those are basically their tabletop adventures. I mean, hands up, who amongst us has not ever sat down and after a D&D game and said, man, this would make such a cool comic or novel or whatever? They've done it. And Hardly Heroes is their series of comics based on their own tabletop adventures. And we had them on an episode. We talked about that. But you should definitely check out Shattermare Comics for gorgeous art, fun stories, and get in there and get that Tracy Lesh artwork. And I am just going to go blatant here. This is just absolutely no question at all about what this is. Get some Delver merch. Yes, it is plenty of time, I think. We currently have a blue t-shirt, although I think you can pick your color on that. But it's a classic crewnet comfort soft t-shirt. A sticker. Sticker is nice and inexpensive. Think how swag that would look on your car, your computer case, your laptop, whatever. Pint glasses. The most important merch, honestly, in my opinion, are the pint glasses. And for the ladies, we have the women racerback tank. And for those of you in cold climes, we have hoodies. So get you over to the Delver's Dungeon Creator Spring. I'm just going to copy that link here. The other ones are easy to find. But so you can check that out. And last but not least, this, of course, is a sponsor of my live stream show, Hellabard Games. They have a whole raft of books, these actual novels, and let's see. Also, a great series of adventure models. Oh, look at that, Temple of the Sun. That is by yours truly. But they have lots and lots and lots of other adventure modules in available in electronic format. And I always say, you can find them on DriveThruRPG or at hellabardgames.com. You should absolutely check them out. The Village of Ensington, their Desert series, just amazing stuff. And I've gotten to do read-throughs on all of these, and I can tell you what, they will absolutely fit in whatever campaign you want to drop them in. So those are my gift recommendations for 2023. And you might start the electronic stuff, of course, you're going to get it like that. But the t-shirts, the comics from Shattermare, any material stuff from Gaxland, time is running out, guys. Tick, tick, tick.
Yeah.
So get out there and get that stuff. Any suggestions, Dungeon Minister, and anything you can think good this year?
Well, I just threw something up there to share the screen. This is totally different tone.
That's fine.
As someone, one of the wonderful, charming, and surprising side effects of having my channel is that people are giving me minis. And one of the effects of minis is that if they're not kept in something, they just collect dust. And if they're thrown together in something, then they bang into each other and paint chips off and little pieces break. I saw this on a someone had bought one of these and repurposed it on some Discord server I'm a member of. This little, it's an IKEA shelf. I'm sure you can find it. Okay, what's its Knissel? They all have ridiculous names.
Yes.
Knissel or something. I think I've got it. It's covered up by this. Turn this off. There we are. Yeah, it has done wonders for me, because those little shelves, not only you can just line your minis up on those shelves. They pull it. They get a little cork layer on them. But you can also, if you've got a good enough magnets on the bottom of your minis, some people magnetize their minis. They stick on there, and you can pull the thing off and turn it upside down, if that's the kind of thing you're into doing. But it's nice because it's almost cubical. You've got the top of it for, you can put things, the taller things can go on top that you are willing to dust. But in general, this is sort of a piece, but I would say in general, storage. If you have someone who does minis and crafting, you can see my shelf of craftiness over here. Storage. It's not the ooh wow kind of factor, but I tell you, if you've got a lot of minis, if you're giving to someone who has a lot of minis, they'll appreciate it. They'll appreciate it. Something to keep them in. Those nice, padded things so they keep them all safe. That would be brilliant. That kind of stuff. That's what I would. That would be my suggestion. Just it's not the sexy. Or if you got someone who crafts terrain, 8x4 sheet of 2-inch foam insulation. That's the way.
Nice. I pulled this up over here on the IKEA page. That is pretty slick. And this, by the way, guys, in case you're wondering about the scale on this, this is like 1 by 1 by 9. So that'll sit conveniently on a table or on a desk. You're not talking about like a bookshelf like I've got behind me.
I've got one right over there. And the minis, the your standard, 28, even up to the heroic scale, will fit on there, standing up in the drawers just fine. And I filled some of them up with just the cheapo little compartmental boxes, plastic compartmental boxes you can get at the dollar store. I think they're made for screws or fishing tackle or something. But I've filled most of the shelves up with those, and they slide in nice and pretty. It's just a nice way to keep them out of the way. And then what I did is actually I printed up a picture on a big, like an 11 by 17 sheet of paper, and I stuck little magnets to the top of the paper and folded it at an angle so it hangs down, just keeps the dust out, keeps the kids from seeing what minis I'm, about to spring on them, things like that.
Nice. That is
a metal box, so you can stick magnets on it.
I like the I like the convenience of it, because like on the rare occasions anymore that I get to game here at the house, I've got to scoot out from behind the table and then squint down and pick stuff up, and something like this to have set up for the metal minis. Now, I mean, if you're like me, like I keep my I keep my plastic minis in Ziploc bags. Just literally like, okay, I need lizard men. Which bag is the lizard men?
I've got a guy at the game shop store, or the game shop game I run. He shows up with one of those cloth shopping bags full of Ziploc bags. And so I'll say, out of the shadows springs a knoll. And he's like, oh, hang on. He's digging through the bags.
Yeah, there is something to be said for organization, regardless of what the minis are. But Miss Bella's asking, everyone ready for the holidays? I know I'm not. Well, we're trying to get you there. We're trying to throw some gift ideas at you if you just kind of scoot the bar back a little bit. There's lots of wonderful stuff you can get. My kids have sent their lists to mom, but I'm the one with the money, so I'm like, could you please send them to me too? And we're in the same house. I'm not talking about like, yes, my kids who live across country. No, we're in the same house, guys. Come on, help the old man out. We're in that awkward stage when they're far too old for toys. Right, so it's like, yeah. Merry Christmas. Here's a Steam gift card. Knock yourself out. I don't, So, so if you've got some need for gifts, we've given you guys. Yang had like 10. I threw in a few, and Dungeon Minister's got this great gadget from IKEA. But if you're going to order, if you got to have it delivered to you, tick, tick, tick. Michael Dale, never too old for toys. Amen. I'm at that glorious point where, you know, I've gone back around from, well, we need to get Bill. We'll get Bill some time. Now he's like, oh, that Bill, let's get him. We'll get him an Amazon card. He knows what he wants. Or, I saw him looking at the gadget at the comic store. He'll like that. So I've gotten into the eccentric 50s when people have stopped assuming I want sober, earth-toned, comes in a shirt box types of gifts.
When you mentioned gift cards, actually made me think if the nerd in your life, if their local game shop has a restaurant attached, a gift certificate for that restaurant would be a good thing. Because you get there and you think, maybe there's a table fee at this store, a few bucks, it's great. We'll go and play a game. Oh, we're going to be gaming over dinner. Oh, it starts to run into money. So, because at some point you do have so much stuff that maybe just experiences or consumables. That'd be a good one.
There you go. And I'll tell you, whatever you do, like these comics, everything like that, if you know they're available at your FLGS, please support them, particularly in this time of year. If you have an FLGS, if you have a comic store, I think we've all rolled our eyes when we've gone into a comic store and said, hey, do you carry any RPG product? And they say, well, no, but we can order it for you, and you're just going to, I can order it for myself. Thanks. Rethink that.
Right.
Rethink that. Maybe revisit those stores and say, yes, please do order me this. Because if it's a not, this is Thursday, you need it Saturday kind of situation, show them some love, particularly in a time when specialist stores are really feeling the pinch. To kind of glide into this, and this is more Yang's field of expertise, so I'm going to let him talk more about this, but the state of comics is not good.
No, it's pretty bad. And there's been more controversy kicked up this past week. There was a local, I believe he was somewhere in Orlando, a comic shop owner who went viral for complaining just about the quality of Marvel and DC comics, that nobody wants to buy this stuff. They're not well written. And wow, we could talk for hours on just what happened to the American comic book industry. But it is pretty much... Sorry, I missed that.
That's a special 10-parter.
Yeah, no kidding. So there are a lot of comic book shops. A lot of them are in trouble. It's not to say they didn't have a hand in their own demise, but
right.
If you like comics, go to the comic store. If there's something you want, ask for it. And there's also something called the Diamond Preview Guide. So Diamond is the distributor that distributes almost all the comics in North America. They have a preview guide of all the comics that are coming up. You could go there and you could take a look at it, and they'll have descriptions and they'll have like the covers for everything. So you could find what you like. They have what you call a hold, which means they'll get, if they're going to order one, they'll set one aside for you, or you could order one yourself if it's not something that they normally order. I'm sure a lot of stores would be very happy.
Yeah, for sure. And the fellow you're talking about, this guy basically said, came in and said, look, stop writing self-inserts.
Yeah.
Stop writing self-inserts. Write good, compelling comics. We want to read about Miles Morales. And he named Miles Morales right off the bat, which was awesome because he basically disarmed any of the arguments that he was ist, phobe, whatever. Yeah. But he said, write about Miles Morales as Miles Morales. Write about Tony Stark as Tony Stark. We want to read about Peter Parker. We want to read about, we want to read about Power Girl. We want to read about Wonder Woman. We don't want to read, well, I can't think of how that person would be or act. Therefore, I'm just going to write them as me.
Yeah. That's one of the problems. Another big complaint is that people who are writing comics now don't want to be writing comics. They're just using this as pitches for Netflix shows. And I think there is a lot of truth to that, because comics is a different medium from TV and from movies. And if you're trying to make it like a movie trope, they don't really hit. And it's interesting because the guy who jumped in to defend the comic book shop owner was Mark Millar. Mark Millar wrote series like Kick-Ass, Kingsman, the Millar world. He sold the rights, the non-comics rights, to Netflix, actually. And so that's why they keep making series after series of his work. So hopefully I'm going to have him on the channel, I hope in January, and we'll get to talk more about it.
Mark Millar?
He tentatively agreed to come on,
Cool.
sometime after the holidays.
I'm excited about that. But yeah, Ethan Van Sciver, who, look, love or hate the guy, I don't care how you feel about him. He's a machine. He's a production machine.
Yeah.
Rob Liefeld, same thing. Look, we've all talked about how cringy Liefeld's art can be, right? But the fact of the matter is, he came out and stood up for this guy, because I mean, the group that attacked him immediately went after the guy's look. And look, I'm not Rock Hudson. I don't think any of us here are. This guy looked like the typical comic book store owner kind of guy, like you would expect, right? And that was where they came out first. The healthy at any side, everything is beautiful crowd immediately attacked this guy on his physical appearance, as they were going after you dare question the narrative.
Well, you don't. If you're attacking the messenger, not the message, you're.
Yeah.
You're
Well, the thing I found funny about this whole situation is this is nothing new. This has been going on since 2017, at least, where a lot of these creators have been very vocal about any sort of detractor. Like, you could say, like, hey, why is there a ton of misspellings in this issue? And all of a sudden you're an istanophobe. And a lot of it is because they're producing very low quality work. I'm somewhat sympathetic to certain arguments, like one of their excuses for like changing all the characters is they say, well, we want to bring in a larger audience, which, okay, is fine. When my mom was young, she used to read romance comics. You don't see romance comics anymore. But the problem is you do that by creating new characters. You do that by creating new lines. You don't take Thor and all of a sudden make him a woman with cancer. You don't take Falcon, who has been a beloved character since the 70s, and all of a sudden make him a crappier version of Steve Rogers. And this is part of the problem. Both Marvel and DC, it's like, what are you doing? And you don't kick out all the fans that you had, all your customer base that you had, in order to get this new, incredibly small customer base that has never shown up. And you can look at it in the numbers. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, X-Men sold between 300 and 500,000 issues in North America. And now, like, 60,000 is a good month.
Yeah.
Now, I wonder sometimes about the rationale behind it is they don't want they want it to be a top line character, so that it's saying, that thinking that if they introduce something new, if they try to raise up a more obscure character that isn't top line, that it's just not going to get the traction because people only want to hear about the big ones, so they have to turn one of the big ones into whatever statement. But Guardians of the Galaxy was a very obscure, like, I'd never heard of that, and I was not huge into comics, or I would have heard of them, but they were sort of second tier comic at least, and that movie was enormous, and it has some of the most off the wall characters that aren't anywhere near the sort of straight down the line staple of comic books. They were huge because they did it well. They just took the characters and did a really good initial movie, at least, out of it, and it exploded. It was massive. So you can do it. It's perfectly possible. You can take some of these secondary characters and turn them into the stars of the show. Just do it well. Commit to what you do,
Sure.
and to doing your craft. I know it's alchemy. It doesn't always work. Otherwise, there wouldn't be an Ishtar. But stick to what you do and do it as well as you can. Tell a good story, and people will love a talking tree who only tells you his name.
Yeah,
That'll become beloved.
There's a lot of missed opportunity there too. You had 10 years of hit after hit after hit Marvel movies. Why didn't Disney put the screws to AMC and Regal Theaters and say, hey, we're going to put spinner racks outside the theater doors so people could buy issues? Why didn't they make special Iron Man 1 or Thor Dark World issues of comics? Because they used to do that. I have old issues of Star Wars that were the actual movies. They did that for Indiana Jones. They used to do that all the time. Why couldn't you do that? Why don't you have the simple floppies for a low price just to get people in? And right next to it, you could have the whole trade paperback for Captain America Winter Soldier. These are opportunities that they missed. Not only do they not sell things at the appropriate place at the appropriate time, they replaced all those characters. So there were people taking their kids who had just seen these movies into comic book stores, and they pick it up and well, why is Iron Man a 15-year-old black girl? Why is the Hulk now a teenage Korean kid? And it's very confusing. People enjoy those things. Why don't you have any products for them? So opportunities missed. And the other part is I think a lot of the quality of the writers. There's just a lot of writers who shouldn't be there. It used to be you would have to submit your work to a company. You would get like a C story on a summer anniversary special. And then from there, you would work your way up, going through crappy titles. You would prove that you could take a title that was trash and make it somewhat popular. And then you get a chance for popular, the A-list. But for some reason, they're just hiring people off the street with no comics writing experience and throwing them on their A-level titles. Like you can't keep doing that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I'm sorry, you were about to say something, Dungeon Minister. I stepped on you. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying. I think there's an overall creep away from competence. In general, in a lot of fields, and it has unfortunate consequences for our for society in general, but culture. Hey, what was I picked up something and realized that everything is worse now. And it was something very simple. It wasn't a huge complex thing. I wish I could remember what it was. It was the packaging on something. And I realized as I held it and tried to everything is worse now. Just everything's gone downhill. And I don't quite well, no, I do know why, because of course they always need to make it a little cheaper, make a little more money next year. So the way to do it is to hike the price and lower the expense, right? And so everything just goes this spiral of getting lousier and lousier. Oh well.
That's why I recommend to everyone, if you're into comics, take a look into independent comics. There's a fantastic scene. Every genre and subculture out there on Indiegogo. There's another crowdfunder called Fund My Comic, and of course Kickstarter. Just go look through that stuff, see what's there, and fund whatever tickles your fancy.
If I can make another recommendation, if you're
Mhm.
if you're feeling the weeb itch a little bit, check manga. And yes, there are superhero titles. It's not all just weird proclivities and giant robots over there in manga land. I mean, My Hero Academia is probably one of the best superhero comics I have ever read. My daughter reads it, and I grab issues when I can from her. There's a cartoon on TV of it, and it's fun. It's like uh, you know, adolescent superheroes. It is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I will just flat out say this: issues with translators translating the cartoons aside, they, how can I say this in a sensitive way? Gosh, they don't bend the knee. The creators don't bend the knee. They have a story to tell. And I nowhere does this shine more. And we're going to kind of year in review in a little bit. By the way, Bob Jester, thank you very much for that super. And yes, that will be divided amongst us. So fear not. I will make sure that Yang and Dungeon Minister get their fair share. But back a couple of years ago, Netflix decided they were going to remake as a live action series, that they were going to remake Cowboy Bebop, and it bombed. It bombed because they made sure that the first mission of it was the message, if I can quote the great critical drinker. But the same studio said, okay, well, we want to do a live action version of One Piece. And a lot of fans of that epically long comedy story clenched up. But what they did was they saw their mistake. And this just blows my mind because this is Netflix we're talking about. And I think from a corporate hierarchy point of view, Dungeon Minister, Yang, we can all agree that Netflix is a pretty awful company. Netflix cleaved to the creator of the manga. They stuck to him like glue and asked him at every turn. He has been present in the entire production. They wanted to have a romance between the main character and between the main male character and the main female character. And so they asked the writer, they're like, are you going there with this? Because this has been a long time. And, is there going to be a will she, won't she thing? And he just said unequivocally, no. They're not. They are good friends, and that's all they'll ever be. And they said, okay, that's out. We're not going to do that thing. So they learned their lesson. But the point that I'm getting at is the creator of a Japanese manga told the studio, don't do that, and they didn't do that. So if you want stuff that is just good stories, independent comics and manga in that order, they're off my soapbox.
Just beware of tentacles.
Yeah, you see too many tentacles. Probably time to clear your browser history and just turn that off and go outside and play.
If it doesn't involve Cthulhu, then
yeah. If you go to the comic store and you ask the owner what's good in manga, and he shows you a shelf out on the sales floor, and you see some cool stuff, grab it. If he says, "I've got some other behind the counter," don't.
Don't go there.
Don't.
Don't go. You cannot unsee that. It's just not.
Yes, right. You cannot unsee. But this has been, I mean, when it comes to media in general, I mean, and let's just just say it out loud. For tabletop games for D&D 2023, what a mess! What an absolute train wreck for Wizard of the Coast. Now, I'm going to do like a full video right after the first of the year on this, but holy hell, Wizards just seemed bound to determine, like, I'll do it again. Watch me. Every month this year in 2023, Wizards of the Coast has done something awful to tabletop games.
Yeah, the Irish vlog YouTuber, what's her name, Dungeons and Discourse.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
every other video from her is something or other just got worse. It's like
Yeah.
she's cracked the code for the titles, but fill in the blank just got worse. But she could just keep cranking them out because it kept getting worse.
I think I'm just going to start doing that for the Christmas Dice Advent Calendar. I'm just the Christmas Dice Advent Calendar just got worse, but that would make those lovely folks at Dudragao unhappy. So I don't want to do that. But no, you're right. It's just that's how I felt from January, literally until last month. There was not a month that went by that Wizards of the Coast, they weren't throwing the baby out with the bathwater. They were wrapping the baby in a sack and tying rocks to it.
Yeah. Well,
And
now I would say it was catastrophic for WotC D&D, but I think it was very good for TTRPGs.
oh yeah.
I mean, as to quote Littlefinger, chaos is a ladder. I don't know what accent he's doing when he does that. God bless the man. But chaos is a ladder,
Chaos
and
is
it
a
gave
ladder.
this. It's somewhere between Bond and a BBC One presenter. But no, there is, because of what happened. I mean, all the assumptions broke, and suddenly, people like Basic Expert introduce a new game, and boom, it gets traction because I think Colville is fundraising, is that's not, what's the word for it, kickstarting something right now, and it's massive.
Yeah, supposedly it's its own system, and I think he's got about 1.5 million.
Yeah, 1.5 million.
Yeah.
And so it did break open instead of just breaking apart. It broke open, and things are emerging that probably maybe would have gotten a little bit of light of day. Maybe a few people would have bought it, but I think more people decided, to heck with it, I'm going to check out what else is out there. And it got
Yeah.
brought. It's like in the forest, when a big tree goes down, it opens up light for a whole bunch of smaller trees to start growing, right? And that's what's happening, which is brilliant. This is brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, to me, a lot of the problem with WotC was Hasbro. I think they just bought it just to have license years ago, and they never expected a resurgence like we've seen since about 2015. So they, it wasn't something that they planned. They didn't focus group it. They didn't do anything specific. It's just all of a sudden they were making lots of money on it. So then now you get the powers that be. And I forget the lady's name, but the new president of WotC was, I believe she was on Xbox, one of their executives before she came here. So you can see that. Yeah, so you can see that what they think is going to make them money is really transitioning away from this silly pen and paper, people getting together in real life game to something online.
No. Yeah, well, it's easier to monetize. It's easier to control. It's easier to keep tabs on. You get the data. You get instant feedback and data and instant product release. A whole lot of bother.
They can squeeze more money out of people too, because normally with most games, it's always the DM who buys all these books and modules, and then players will just borrow his, when they show up at the table. So now everybody's got to buy everything.
Yeah.
Everything becomes a purchase rather than talk to your dungeon master and figure out if you can do it. No, I bought it. Now I can use it in the game.
Yeah, and that's, there's just a whole mindset there, and we talked about this all the way back, Yang, when you were talking about your coming campaign, the whole, I paid $49.99 for this book on Amazon. You have to let me use it in your campaign. And my half Asimar, quarter furry, 3/5 tabaxi, chaotic evil, paladin, bard, gelatinous cube kin must be allowed in your campaign. And I mean, that's Wizards of the Coast just pushing churn. And well, that's Hasbro. That's Hasbro telling Wizards of the Coast to push the churn. And
I have solutions to that in my campaign guide, by the way.
Good. Salt on the gelatinous cubes, it just dissolves them immediately.
Oh, nice.
But no, they're pushing they're pushing churn, and they've entered. And I've told this before, so I can explain this in the Alex Jones voice for a super chatter. I can just say it normally, but no, I've talked about before. The GW model is what Wizards of the Coast wants for their for themselves, and they're trying to figure out how to do that with something. I mean, GW is models, like 99% of their sales is models. They don't really give a fig about books. I mean, they sell a lot of codices, yeah, but honestly, if they could just push a button tomorrow and it's just like, look, it's on your phone or your tablet, everybody has one, buy more models, they would do that, right? But the model that that Games Workshop has had since the mid 1990s is the 1315 model. And the 1315 model is young men between the ages of 13 and 15 are their key demo. That's it. That's all. Why 13 to 15? They have no income. They have to rely on mom and dad's income. So hook the 13 to 15-year-old. Hook them when they're 13, preferably. They haven't discovered girls yet. Or whatever. They haven't discovered it yet. They want them to get attracted, spend $2,000 worth of mom and dad's money over the course of 18 months for an Ultramarines army, which $1,500 to $2,000 in GW minis and models nowadays is like 100 models. Let's just be right up. But buy the paint, buy the hobby supplies, buy the codices, buy all of that. Play maybe 10 times over the course of that period. Then you hit 15. Then it becomes girls or guys and cars, and all that stuff gets stuffed in a box and set on a shelf and forgotten about. They got their money out of you. Now they want you gone. They don't want you to come back to the table. They got your money. Your money is spent to them, because people that don't leave turn into people like me. And I'm the one who'll tell people, yeah, I got a 3D printer if you want, like that walking dreadnought guy with the missile launchers. I'll just print you one out. Or, I remember back when the rules worked like this. It was a lot simpler. Yeah, you want to just play like that? Right. And I keep my army. I don't buy new models. I'll tell them, hey, yeah, there's this website called DACA. You can find paint equivalencies. The old Citadel colors were the best. Just get those from Coat to Arms. All right. I will keep people in the hobby, but not spending money. I'm not the person with that GW wants around. Yeah. They want me gone. They want me out of the hobby. Because I will interfere with the 13-15 model, where they wring money out of adolescent boys and then throw them aside.
Well, I'm the ultimate enemy, because I not only do I play the old game, I teach my kids to play the old game. Mm-hmm. So they're not making any money there. Occasional minis, their minis are pretty good.
Well, that is what Wizards of the Coast wants. Wizards of the Coast wants that model. They want to make the American Games Workshop out of D&D.
Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be one of the key problems for them coming up in the future. Is if you look at like the OSR crowd and everything, there's still, the people have an emotional attachment to it, usually because they started playing it with friends when they were younger, and they've continued through the years. What's going to happen to this whole group of 5e players, because right now the user base for 5e is much larger than any of the classic edition user bases. So when they want to go to 6, what happens to all those people who've already spent hundreds of dollars on books and rule sets and whatnot, and all this accoutrement for 5e? They're going to be like, wait, I don't want to spend another $2,000. So I think they're going to have a real hard problem getting people to turn on to D&D 1 or 6e or whatever they're going to call it. And future editions in general for a while, just because, this was sort of the millennial group as they were coming up. And that just as a population was so large, the Gen Z and Alpha are much smaller than millennials. So where are you going to find this customer base who's willing to spend this money in the future? I don't know how they're going to be able to do it.
The only thing I can think is, and this kind of goes to what they've said that they want to do, which is the whole, books are going to become boutique things and they're going to switch to a digital model. They're really, really, really pushing D&D into being a digital only the weird old DM who's like, he's an old guy who plays D&D. He's in his late 20s who they'll still sell books to, and they'll charge $125 for a slipcase edition of the Dungeon Master's Guide. And that will be the physical books. Everybody else will be doing micropayments for the one D&D tabletop. I think that is their end game.
I think it is. I just don't think it's going to work. I just don't think the audience is there, especially not with there's a new virtual tabletop called Tabletop, spelled with a Y. They've got it. You've got Roll20. You've got Foundry. What do I need D&D 1 for?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And the one thing that every company that has been in charge of Dungeons and Dragons since its inception has done, and I'm not letting Gary and Dave and the original guys off the hook. They've underestimated us. I mean, the story goes that at the first Gen Con or first gaming conventions in general, after the release of Dungeons and Dragons in March, either late January, early February of 1974, was that they had people walk right up to the TSR table with mimeographed and photocopied and sometimes and rewritten copies of the D&D rules and say, okay, right here it says this. Can you clarify this? People were pirating almost as quick as it came out. They had more people respond to questions about D&D than sold copies of D&D when they started sending out questionnaires. When TSR said, hey, we're getting rid of half orcs and assassins when 2E rolled out, nobody got rid of half orcs and assassins if they didn't want to. Well,
that's my thing. It's just, a new edition is out. Isn't that nice? I'm utterly uninvested in it at all. I'm still playing what someone gave me as a Christmas or birthday present. I can't remember which, back in 1983. I don't need,
Yeah. And I mean, I don't like the guy. I'm not a fan of his for a great many reasons. But honestly, the Ryan Dancy and the rest of those guys releasing the OG. Oh, thank you, Minger. Thank you very much. Release your Unearthed Arcana to finish your collection and couldn't be happier. Well, I'm happy for you, my friend. And we thank you for that super. But those guys that did the OGL, that was the ultimate, you underestimated gamers moments, because now we've been able to flip WotC off and say, we don't have to ask your permission anymore. And D&D is free and it's out there, and we're going to play it and enjoy it until we crumble into dust. I mean, I'm running tonight at 8. I'm running an original D&D game for my daughter for her 16th birthday for her and friends. So, that the game from 1974 in nearly 2024.
I'm noticing in the Road March put in the comments that that all you need is the DM guide, the player's handbook, and the monster manual. And people, I don't have enough experience with the system to know this one way or the other, but people tell me, and from what I've seen, if you were even working in 5e and those are the 3 you had, you'd be fine as long as you brought your own imagination to it and that kind of stuff, because the core game is still, it's still there. It's like the release of all the new stuff hasn't eliminated the initial books, right? It is that sense of uh, that well, it's in the rules now. I bought this book and now you have to let me use it, as you mentioned earlier. But if that's not your jam, you just stick with what you've got and you already have it. Even that, even if you're buying their product, you're still utterly free to do whatever the heck you want to with it. Like, there's no. I'm always astonished when people say, "Well, no, you can't do that. It's not on the rules." What do you mean the rules? We're at the table now. The rules they're a dead thing. We're at the table now. How is it going to live? What's it gonna do here in the game? The game is what matters, and that is a really hard thing to monetize. People's imagination, right? You can't. So the only sort of good faith model is to say, here are the rules I made up. I'd like compensation for the work that went into making these rules, but then have fun, do whatever. Oh, you're doing that? That sounds pretty cool. We do this at our table, and let it go. But that's just not a corporate model. You can't sell shares on that, right? Which is
Right.
why probably hand stapled out of Gary's basement was the way to do it, really, when it came down to it. A chunk.
Yeah, I think it's the past few years have been bad for the industry, but they've been awesome for the hobby. And I think there's a thermocline. If you guys know your world oceanographic studies, the thermocline is that layer between the cold water at the bottom and the warm water at the top of the ocean. So there's kind of a thermocline that divides the hobby with the industry, and the industry sucks, but the hobby, and that includes small creators selling stuff exactly as you say, Dungeon Minister. The hobby is very healthy. The
Yeah.
industry sucks.
One thing I've found in that sense of I've got the book and it has this rule, and it has created a player. A lot of things I think contribute to it. Players who play. When I say they're playing a different game, I mean they're approaching the rules in an entirely different mindset, because for the longest time it was so dependent on teamwork. The wizard, the magic user, was useless until at least 3rd level. I got my one spell. Yeah, not useless. You'd have one thing. Maybe you had sleep as your spell, right? And you could really huge effect. But then for the rest of the game, you're like, I'm throwing daggers and hiding behind the fighter, right? But that was part of it. The wizard had the one thing, and you knew that eventually the wizard was going to be pretty powerful. So you kept that one safe, right? And the fighter had their part to do, and the thief had their part to do. But with so much of the industry part of it, as you say, leading the way, they've got to keep making products. They put up all this stuff, and now, because my boys will play 5e sometimes, because it's the game that happens down at the game shop and things like that. Well, not when I'm running it, but and so barbarians cast spells, and wizards can use swords, and all this stuff, to the point that they don't need each other as much. And the play rewards things like bravado. If the most audacious move you can make gets rewarded and is expected to be rewarded. Whereas in an old school play, the most cautious play you can have, the most tactical, the most, that's what gets rewarded. So I've got a couple players who are old school guys, they've been playing the same 2 characters since we began the campaign. I got a couple players who are 5e, and they're coming over to play back to me now, and each of them has had at least 3 characters, and they die constantly because they charge in right away. There you go. They charge in right away, and well, I'm going to go into this dark room full of suspicious noises with an AC of 7 and 2 hit points. I'm going to go in there. You know, that's where I'm heading off to, alone, right? And in they're expecting to have all these outs, all of these backups and saves and ways to get out of trouble, and they just don't exist. So it's taken them some time. It's a learning curve to say, oh, I should wait for the big beefy guy with the armor and the big sword to come with me. Okay, you know. So but it's led by the need to keep selling product, because
Yeah.
the core stuff is just that's not the core stuff. That's all the addendums, and it just makes it into, in order to keep selling stuff, they got to keep giving you goodies, and you end up with a player who doesn't know how to play the core game because they're so full of goodies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think part of that is the rules. I think part of it, you're right, is like there's way too many subclasses. To an extent, I understand the theory. Like, you want people to be able to play such and such a character, you know, in the way that they want. Meaning, you know, I want to be more of like a melee person versus a ranged or spell or whatever. So to some small extent, I understand that, but why can't that be some sort of agreement between the DM and the player? You know, like in 5e, there's certain classes where you'll automatically have access to certain spells. You know, if you want to, like, let's say, I don't know, fire wizard or something. So you got all these fire spells that you have access to right away. If you want to be an ice wizard, why can't you talk to the DM and be like, hey, instead of, you know, all this fire stuff, can I have ice stuff instead?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a lot of things that I don't see the need to make up all these new rules for. And God help us, all the different races. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense that much intelligent life can develop at the same place at the same time. But
Out-compete each other.
yeah. You know, like, to an extent, all of those things can be fun in the right situations, but it shouldn't be seen to be forced on other people. You know, it should really be between the players and the DM to figure out what kind of a game you want to play. And I agree. One of the problems with 5e in particular is, you know, with examples like you said, where people are just doing all sorts of stupid things. Like, okay, in my test group for Empire of the Undying Sun, which is coming out next year, I had 2 guys. They were fighting on pirate ships, and they jumped by themselves onto another ship that had like 50 pirates, and they died because that was not the smart move.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're a DM, you know, you sort of have to hold people accountable for their mistakes.
Yeah, and they get it eventually, right? I mean, it takes a while. Like I said, with 3 dead characters each, but they're sort of figuring out, oh, hang on, don't do that. Don't do that.
I saw this popped up. Somebody shared a screenshot of it. Ryan David, if you're out there, I think you and I maybe discussed this on Twitter. And I apologize if I forget this, but I know you're at least aware of it. You know, we all talk about D&D horror stories, right? You know, that's like the most popular phishing thing to put if you want karma on Reddit, is to, you know, spin up some story about how your DM threw beer cans at your head, and, you know, or, you know, some guy that smelled like cat poop flipped the table.
You can do that? You can do that?
Yeah. People just go on the internet and lie. But no,
I meant throw beer cans.
Oh no, you can do both. But this came up a few months ago. Somebody was upset because their DM hit them with an undead that can drain levels, and they were like so upset because they didn't consent to it. They had never consented to having that in their game.
Yeah, I don't.
And I mean, where are we as a hobby? Where are we as a hobby that you need to make sure that your players consent to that? Now look, I want to be 100% clear about something. I think there are some absolute dick moves you can do as a DM that people should be upset by. I think there is content that can crop up in your game that is absolutely going to gross people out and turn them off, and lol, calm down, it's just a game is not an excuse to cover it. You're all National Socialists from Central Europe in the mid 1930s, and you're working at a very particularly nasty kind of prison camp. That's your roles. That's what I, as the master, decided you're doing. Yeah, no, screw you. I'm leaving this table right now, as well you should. But I'm sorry, level draining your character, particularly when we're talking about D&D, where the remedy for that is right around the corner. That's 5 good dungeon crawls worth of adventuring for XP, and you're throwing a fit about it. And no, I'm sorry. That's wrong. You're wrong if you think that. And if your expectations for D&D were those, you need to get your mind right. To quote Strother Martin, you need to get your mind right. You got your mind right there? You need to get your mind right, because that is not that. No, I'm sorry. If that's what, if that is the ultimate end look, you look at the bell curve. Generally speaking, I think most gamers are right in here when it comes to stuff we want out of our games. Down here on this end, you've got people who say, look, if it's anything more than chainmail and Brownstein rules, I don't want anything to do with it. But then over on this end, you've got, if we're not playing horse surgery girl using X cards, I don't want anything to do with it. I understand that those are tiny, 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 tiny minorities, but the internet has a tendency to blow things up. And it just blows my mind that exists down on the D&D curve, that someone could be, that they could think that your game shouldn't, that you as a game master should clear that with your players.
No, the whole thing of adventure, right? I mean, if you need permission in order to encounter things, then don't go adventuring, right? Like, the whole point is into the unknown, and clearing stuff is like, I don't know, it doesn't work that way. It's not an adventure then. It's a set menu, and I'm just gonna take these familiar things off the set menu, and I won't deal with anything. It's not an adventure. Bilbo would have said, I'll take an adventure with no dragons, please.
Yeah. So I just feel like, and that's really where it comes back. And I mean, Yang, you're like the adventures I designed for Yang, and I'm not going to reveal anything, but I mean, and it reminds me so much of the first thing I ever wrote professionally for tabletop games that made money was Elemental Moon. I did that with Lance Havermail all the way back in 2003, 4. I said, look, he was like, Bill, you got to write a module with me. I said, oh, man. And finally, I said, look, I don't want to write a 3E module. And he said, don't. Write a 1E module. I'll worry about the mechanical stuff. Just write a 1E module. And working with Yang, same thing. I didn't pull punches. Yang's read my manuscript so far. I still owe him one. But Yang's read my manuscript so far. Yang Did I do anything in there that is not AD&D?
No, it's really a very much original AD&D vibe to it, which is exactly what I want for the campaign and the world.
Exactly. So that then comes back to us, whether you're, dungeon minister, with your convention, whether it's me with my live streams or dungeon minister with his live streams, or Yang out there putting out a whole campaign setting. That's the mindset we've got to fight against. We've got to let people know, look, we're not gatekeeping by doing this. We're showing you that there can be a fun and an exhilaration. We're ambassadors of the real old school, not some plaster and temper paint, capital THE, capital OSR, but we're the real old school. And as the guys who are going forth, sword in one hand and torch in the other, we've got to carry that light. We've got to let people know, look, yeah, no, there is no consent required for me to throw a white at you, but there's a crap ton of treasure in the barrow with it. So what are you going to do?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then as someone was pointing out in the chat, that then the if you've got a problem with if you don't want to simply earn your way back up a level, maybe there's a way to address it, but it's going to be another quest.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, and actually that would be a fun thing to do. Is like, yes, you can get the cure for the level drain on this quest, and they reach the quest, and they find the silver chalice or the golden scepter or whatever it is they're after, and it turns out that really the cure for it was all the adventuring they did to get there, and the thing is just a MacGuffin, right? It was the friends we made along the way.
Yeah.
The real adventure was the experience points we earned along the way. Because it is, it all that kind of stuff. You can, it's an in-world problem. You have an in-world fix. You don't have an out-of-game, attempt to solve the in-game problems out of game. Because then what you're doing is you're taking the in-game problems and you're pulling them out of the game, and now you're putting them among the people instead of among the characters. You're making them among the players and the DM, and that's just.
And you're putting the onus on the dungeon master that you must have done that because you don't like me as a person,
right?
And then that just that goes back to things that should be gate kept out of the hobby.
Yeah.
Is these attitudes of everything that's in the game is of the real world, and the real world has implications to the real game. And Ryan was mentioning, I was saying something about not wanting to gatekeep, and Ryan said, no, we should be gatekeepers. I agree, and that's the thing that should be gate kept out of the games, whatever your tabletop role-playing game is. If the easiest way through the door is, do you want to play tabletop RPGs, and do you want to have fun, and do you want to leave the real world outside the door, away from the table? It's that simple. And by that criteria, I am a proud gatekeeper. I'm a proud gatekeeper, and that is the gatekeeping everyone should strive for. Just my opinion.
Oh, that's a good point.
But anyway, so the Nerd Councils of Doom. I would love to hear from you guys in the comments down below what you think of the Nerd Councils of Doom, because we're actually going to start doing these a lot more often. I think the last one, Yang and I did one, and it was so long ago we had to do it on dial-up. It feels like. But
I wrote my contributions and tied them to a carrier pigeon and sent them down to you.
Yes, semaphore lamp for dungeon minister and I. But anyway, so the Nerd Councils of Doom, we're going to spin those up and try and bring those to you at least on a semi-regular basis here coming in 2024. But Yang, do you have any? I think because we've been going for a couple hours now. Dungeon Minister, I know you've got a game to get to. I've got to prep for my Sweet 16s OD&D game I'm running tonight. So Closing thoughts on 2023. Yang, go.
Thank God it's almost over.
Ditto.
Okay.
Ditto. No, I mean,
And
ditto, but I do think all the chaos has been good. I mean, sometimes chaos is just bad, but I do think a lot of it has opened stuff up and given people a look at alternatives in a lot of things, not just in gaming, in all sorts of pop culture areas. So I think it's could have done without the chaos in the financial sector, in the consumer sector, but in terms of entertainment, I think it was a good thing.
I was extraordinarily blessed at an extremely stressful time in early 2023, late 2022. You guys know the story. I'm not going to bore the audience with it again. So, kind of on the one hand, it was a crazy year for me, but on the other hand, I was exceptionally blessed by some wonderful, wonderful people. So I've ridden the waves to see where they go, to quote the song. And it's been an interesting year. As for now, I'm just gonna kick back and enjoy the spirit of the season. And I want to thank everybody, the audience who's tuned into the Nerd Council of Doom today. There are more coming. And they may expand. We may gather more members to us. I want to thank everybody in the broader audience who's subscribed. Please, though, you need to be subscribing to these two gentlemen here, Yan Zhao and Dungeon Minister. Please go subscribe to their channels. We're this close. We're this close to getting Yang over 500, so you can start monetizing. So let's get in those. 19, I think you're 19 out from being able to flip that big switch, Yang. So everybody, go subscribe to Yang Intel. Go subscribe to Dungeon Minister. Have an absolutely wonderful Saturday, a magnificent holiday season, and we'll see you guys again after the first of the year when we've just got a bunch of wrapping paper and burned out fireworks to clean up. So thank you all. I don't have closing credits. You guys probably don't want to hear Owl Bear. So have a lovely Saturday, everybody. Peace. Be well.
Merry Christmas, everyone.